Okay. All right. Hi, my name is Rachel Byer, and I am currently in Westminster, Colorado. Today's date is October 29th in the year 2020. And I'm gonna let our oral history narrator introduce herself, and we'll go from there.
Hello, my name is Larissa Braid. I am an enrolled member of the 3 affiliated tribes from the Fort Berthold Reservation in North Dakota. That is the Rikra, Mandan, and Hidatsa. And I'm also Oglala Lakota from the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. I'm 26 years old, and I was born and raised in pretty much Denver, Colorado. Right now I reside in Bear Valley. And that's it.
So to begin, I would like to ask a question that's totally open-ended and say, where would you like to start this conversation? Where do you want to start your story today?
I'm not sure. I guess talk about life before COVID. I guess how it affected that. Because I mean, I don't know. Okay.
Well, you came to us about through conversations about the powwow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, let me get my thoughts together. Okay. So before COVID and everything happened, usually powwow season, it would start in the spring, and then most of the time it would kind of end in the fall time. Probably around this time is when the last of like the big celebrations would happen. But within the last 5 years, they've been going year round. But even though that's happened, Denver March has always been the start of the powwow season, and it's like the start of spring. And for a lot of people in the Midwest of like the US, this is like one of the biggest powwows for them. And just within these past few years, we've had people from as far as Florida, Massachusetts, California, Oregon. So we had a lot of contestants over the years, and not only from the US, but from Canada as well. I believe we had 4 provinces represented last year. But before COVID happened, I was named the powwow coordinator, and at least 5 years before that, I was volunteering. And it would just be in different areas from vendor check-ins. So like the vendors who would come and sell their stuff, we would check them in Thursday morning, get them situated, which spot they would be in for the weekend, things like that. And then I was also helping with tabulation. So with some powwows, it's contest based on points. So you have to make grand entry, and then there's elimination points, and that's through contests and things like that. So I was helping in that area as well. But for this year, it was going to be kind of different because I was going to kind of oversee the whole powwow. So I wasn't just going to be like contest and tabulating. It was going to be like looking at the powwow as a whole. And we were really excited because we also had people who were going to live stream the powwow, and we haven't done that since like 2015 or 2014. So it was kind of we were really excited for this year basically, and there was a lot happened and here we are. But it's crazy how much COVID has affected not only powwows but our ceremonial ways as well. And even it's so different, and it's crazy how much we've had to adapt it. But also through this time, they've been having virtual powwows. So basically, dancers would videotape themselves in their backyards or in their homes or at their local park, things like that, and they would post their videos to a Facebook page called Quarantine Specials. So as Denver March Powwow Committee, we are looking at those kind of things as well, because right now we don't know when COVID's going to end. There's nobody can say like it's going to end on this date. So it's just really, we're trying to adapt. That's all we can really say. But just crazy. But me personally, I don't only help out with powwows, but I'm also a dancer as well. I've been traveling from Denver to different powwows since I was junior category. So that's basically 6 to 12 years old. And powwows, they're broken down by age category. So there's tiny tots, and that's like babies to 5, junior 6 to 12, teens 13 to 17, 18 some places, and then adults and then golden age. So I've been traveling all over since at least I was 12 years old. And then within the past year, I went to San Manuel Powwow in California, Durant Powwow in Oklahoma. Also went to Seminole Powwow in Florida, and that's held by the Seminoles. So it was an exciting time before COVID.
Would you tell me more about I'd love to hear different details of the powwow. The first one that I'd like to hear about is tabulation. Is something that I did some Googling on to try to find out more about it, but I didn't find a lot, and I'd love to hear more about tabulation and how that works. Not just necessarily the system itself, but kind of like how that fits into the powwow system.
Yeah. Not all powwows are competition, but the ones that are competition, they do need tabulators. And I know some powwows, they'll hire their local accountants or through the tribe, things like that. But within the past 10 years, I would say there's at least, I would say about 4 groups, including us, who are considered professional tabulators. So we travel all over the US, and different powwow committees will hire us out to come and basically tabulate for them. And a few of them I know they're kind of getting more like technologically advanced. So before, basically you'd wear your powwow number and you just write it down. Well, nowadays there's people who make powwow numbers and they have like a scan thing, so they can scan it and it takes your number. So there's different ways people can do it, but for Denver March, we kind of have an older system. But we usually do the writing down on a tablet, and that's just so like if somebody wanted to say, oh, I was in Grand Entry, we can just like look back and be like, well, your number's not here, or vice versa, like, oh, well, your number's here, we'll fix that. So that's kind of what we do. And sometimes like we'll just do the powwow contest, but there's also drum contest as well. And for example, at White Shield Powwow, they have 3 drum contests. So that's the original style, contemporary style, and Southern style. And each category has like 5 places, I think. So it's kind of a lot depending on which powwow, but most powwows, it's just the regular contest. And then it also depends on the category breakdown, but basically we just kind of add points. And then just like with anything, there's also cheaters. So we also have to keep an eye out for like people who are wearing other people's numbers, or it can also happen on mistake, like a family member mixes up their powwow number with another family member. So, there's just different things you have to look out for. But I would say within the past 5 years, there's at least 4 groups that like, that's what they're known for, is tabulating. And Denver March, we all, even though we have the powwow, we're also known for tabulating as well.
Cool. So then what is the significance of adding tabulation to the dances? Why not just have the dances? Why bring in tabulation?
Well, I would say within the past, well, I'm only 26, so ever since I can remember, there's been competition powwows. But like my mom and my grandma, they remember, like, I would say the late 80s, that's when competition powwows came around. So it hasn't really been around that long. But for the most part, it kind of started with these casino powwows. So these tribes with big casinos, they wanted to attract people for their casinos, or, come check us out, come check out the casino, things like that. And so with that, they kind of looked at the rodeo circuit, and how they have their contests. That's basically what they looked at, and they kind of followed that. And within the past few years, it was getting pretty high at some powwows. I remember this one powwow had 3 contests, and first place for each one was $10,000, and it just went down. So it's kind of a serious thing, because it includes money basically. But not all powwows are like 10,000 first place. But for the most part, they want to do it fair and correctly. So
right.
For the most part, that's what I started from, was the casino powwows.
Oh, it's very interesting. So then how are points decided?
Just from like For most powwows, so basically you sign up and then they have grand entries. So it really depends on the powwow. So like for Denver March, we have 2 grand entries on Friday, 2 on Saturday, and then 1 on Sunday. And I think each grand entry is worth 50 points. So if you do miss a grand entry, it would like affect you in the contest standings, I guess. But that's just, I mean, I guess there was a time when people would show up at a powwow. Usually powwows start on Friday and then end on Sunday night, or Sunday. And there was a time people would show up to a powwow on Sunday and still take first. And it's like, you weren't there all week. Or, how would that fairly be done? So that became an issue. And then I think that's where a lot of people were like, hey, if you're going to, have all this prize money, you need to try and do it fairly, or at least give everybody a chance. So that's kind of where tabulation came from. And then just trying to be fair. And then also, I have quite a few friends. These powwows, they kind of help them out. Like they're students in college. So, going to powwow for a weekend would kind of help them out a little bit, whether that was for their personal selves or, for school, things like that. So it really helped out a lot of people. And I know right now there's a lot of people that are feeling the impact of no powwows, basically. So it's definitely a hard time for some, but very different.
Very much. So then are there set dances? Are there set requirements for what you do in the march, like in the entries and so forth?
I don't have a flyer. Let me hold on. I have a flyer over here. Let me look. Here we are. So it really depends on which or the powwow and like where it's at in the U.S. because in some tribes they have their own personal dances. So like down south, thinking of the Choctaw, they have their East. I can't even think of the word, but they have their own categories. But at Denver March, we have the usual traditional, jingle, and fancy, and we had it broken down to for traditional, it can be northern and southern, and if you really want to break it down, it could be down to northern cloth, northern buckskin, southern cloth, southern buckskin. So it really depends on the powwow. It could have easily 70 categories if you really broke it down. But for Denver March, we had the looking at the men's, we had northern traditional, and then men's southern straight, men's chicken, men's fancy, men's grass, women's fancy, women's jingle, and then the women's northern buckskin, women's northern cloth, but women's southern buckskin cloth was combined. So for grand entries, they would just come in order, but usually the golden age leads in everybody, and then it goes from adults, and then like how I mentioned them, so traditional, chicken, fancy, and grass.
Are there traditional dress directly tied to each of those different kinds of dances, or is it people wear what represents themselves or their tribe or their clan? Like for example, if you're looking at one of those categories, will most people be dressed similarly? Will they be wearing different forms of dress?
It's kind of both. So for the most part, men's traditional, just the overview, they wear the men's head roach and then they'll have one big bustle on their back. So that's how you can tell they're men's traditional, but it also breaks down to where they're from. So men's Lakota style, they will wear face paint, and they usually don't paint their whole face. And then there's other tribes. I'm not sure where the contemporary men's northern traditional comes from, but they'll paint their whole face, and they're a little more fancy with their style versus the men's Lakota, for example. And then like for men's southern straight, they don't have a bustle at all. So it's just their head roach and then their fan and stick. And then just like them, I know it comes from Oklahoma. And then even then in Oklahoma, they have different tribes. So I know there's some dancers that will wear like concho shells on their on the back of their things, and then even down to their designs. You can kind of tell like which tribe they're from. But for the most part, like they'll kind of dress similar, but then it comes down to their tribe, and that's where you can kind of tell their different style, and also the way they dance as well. So women's fancy, for the most part, they probably all look alike, like have the shawl and the cape, but to look different or stand out from each other, one might be a little more shinier or like have a little bit more bling. And then there's also old style, so they wouldn't have bling, or there's just so much different styles. But you would be able to tell, like, oh, that's women's jeans. That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
But each style also has their own story. They're also their own origin story. Just on the top of my head, for the men's grass, there's a story that there was a boy who couldn't walk, or he couldn't use his legs basically, and he went out and had a vision of himself dancing with the grass, and the people, when he went back to the people, they were singing him a song, and he started to slowly dance, and he was able to use his legs. So that's where the grass dance came, because from his movements it looked like the prairie grass.
Mhm.
And then for women's jingle, I'm not sure if it was during the Spanish flu, but the women's jingle originated from a sickness that was attacking all of the tribes. And one of the tribes from, I want to say Minnesota or Wisconsin, they had a medicine man, and he had a vision. Friends were dancing jingle basically, and they were able to heal people. So women's jingle is kind of known for being like a healing dance.
Okay.
And at some powwows, they'll have the women's jingle all come out, and they'll all, and then like if people need prayers or if they're sick, they'll stand in the middle. So yeah,
Wow.
every style's different.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. So the dancing is part of the powwow, but can you talk about some of the other parts of the powwow, the vendors, the food, the other what other activities happen at the powwow?
So usually the powwow is kind of the main event, but in the Denver Coliseum, so there's the arena, and then on the surrounding, I don't know what you call it, levels, and then
Concourse, I
behind
think?
that concourse, that's what it is. So on the concourse, I think we have at least 100 vendors on top. And like with vendor check-in, they'll just come and check in, and then usually they already have spots filled out for them, and then we just kind of give them like the paper, the rules, the Coliseum contract, things like that. And then they usually go and set up. And vendors, they come from all over, and we had actually a lot of vendors from out east. And they're not all native as well. There's also like contracting people. I know there was a few tribal cops that were going to come and set up a vendor booth to try and get recruitments, things like that. But for the most part, vendors would sell, or they usually sell earrings, necklaces. I know some were selling flutes, t-shirts, what's what quilled earrings. Really imagine. And there's actually one girl, her name's Jordan Drapo, and she's from South Dakota, and she's really well known for her quilled earrings, and she sold out on Friday. Like she had at least over 30 earrings. She had a bunch of necklaces, and it was sold out Friday night. So this is all, COVID is also impacting vendors, and it was really hard when we had to cancel the powwow. We called each vendor individually, and we told them, what was going on and the plans that we had at the time, which was really no plans.
Yeah.
But it was just really hard and they were just basically saying like, well, what are we going to do? Like, this is our livelihood. And we gave them a heads up, there might not be powwows this year. And some of them were, oh no, it'll still happen. It was just like, we're just giving you a heads up, start thinking. And for the most part, a lot of vendors are now online, and they have their own Etsy shops, or a lot of them are on Facebook. There's a Facebook group that was created for them, I believe. And they're also posting their stuff on the social distance powwow on Facebook as well. So there was the vendor part of the powwow, and then we also had storytelling. And this year was going to be kind of interesting because we had two female storytellers. Lynette White, was it White Bull? No, Lynette Two Bulls. She's from Montana, and she was going to be our northern storyteller. And Jane Myers from Oklahoma was going to be our southern storyteller. So it was just going to be interesting to see what stories they were going to tell at the story and share with the people. In the past, we've always had a northern and a southern storyteller, but we've never had two women at the same time. So it was going to be different. And then for our fry bread stand, we were going to have Takabe come in, and they usually do the fry bread and the Indian tacos and the soups. But last year, I think they were opening another restaurant in Oklahoma, or there was, oh no, the Ben who owns Takabe was having his third baby or second. So they were kind of busy with different things. So we had a powwow from Fort Collins come in and they did the fry bread. But they were Takabe was gonna do it this year. There's always a long line for Takabe when they do. So yeah.
So then
that's mostly the powwow though. And
right. Yeah. So then the people who participate in the powwow, I mean, does everybody know each other? Is it one of those things where most everybody knows each other in certain areas, but then you always get new people? And, you know, what are the connections between the dancers, if there are any?
It's kind of a mix of things. There's a lot of people who've been powwowing for years. There's one couple I can think of. They've been traveling forever. Marcy and Terry Fiddler, they're from South Dakota, but I believe they live in Minnesota now. But they're in golden age now, and they just know everybody. So there's people like them who've traveled all over and, you know, gotten to know different people. And then like me personally, just through my parents and my grandma, they've adopted people throughout the years. So we call them our powwow family. And that's kind of how I know people. And then just being around them and meeting others and things like that. And then there's a lot of people at powwows, they're just naturally friendly and they'll just like, you know, come up and talk to you and your friends. And then sometimes there are powwow families that are very large. So just from that alone, there's all kinds of friends and relatives. At Oglala Nation, and that's where my dad's from, Pine Ridge, we usually have at least 4 camp trailers in like a little circle, and that's just the people that we know, and there's at least 20. Or in North Dakota, our families, they usually put up camps, so there's a lot of people that will, you know, will invite, come and eat and get to know them, things like that. So it's just friendships that are built throughout the years, and then just meeting people and when you're on the trail. When I went to California last December, I actually met a lot of people, and it was just, I was there by myself and they knew that, so they were just kind of like, oh, you know, how are you doing? Do you need anything? Let me know. And just kind of made friends that way as well. So it's just a mix of different things. And then for the people that do travel every weekend, you just kind of end up seeing people a lot. So you just kind of end up being their friends. Fun.
And so then do you want to talk about how COVID has affected the powwow this year and all those other pieces that go along with that?
Yeah, it's really affected us. As of today, the Denver Coliseum is closed until next April or possibly May. So that's, you know, we're already like, what are we gonna do? But at this point, I think our main priority is having everybody's safety in mind. You know, we wouldn't want somebody to come get sick, you know, just bad things happen. And that's the other thing, the powwow is supposed to represent spring, a celebration of life. And even though we can't gather together, when we can, it's going to be amazing. Like, it's going to be nice. But for the most part, COVID has affected a lot of people. And personally, I had a job, so I didn't really, powwow wasn't my job, or powwowing, dancing and all of that. But I do have a lot of friends that was their job. They traveled every weekend to a powwow, and it's like, you know, some of them, they're okay. They went to making things, so sewing, beading, making jewelry. And then others, I know they're kind of having a hard time with it. And it's not just the income, but it's also the people. Like they miss their friends. They miss getting to see everybody every weekend or traveling to different places. I know I miss Lawrence, Kansas for my food places. So it's just affecting everybody in a different way. But for us as a powwow, it's just the unknown and uncertainty of things. Because, for the most part, we were like, okay, next March we'll be okay. Next March we'll be back. And it's like already, what are we gonna do? But I think it's just a learning experience and it's adapting. And right now the safest thing is for everybody to stay home.
Yeah.
And I know there's a few powwows. I can't remember the one in Washington, but they had a thing where they had contestants send in videos. They picked the top 10, and then the top 10 had to travel to Washington, and then they did like a tournament style, and then had three.
Oh,
So we're kind of thinking of maybe doing something like that, or if not, a virtual powwow for sure. So it's just really trying to see what works for other powwows, and then see what would work for us. We're also thinking we might have to have the powwow outdoors at a later date next year, maybe summer, maybe late fall, September. So it's just the uncertainty of it
yeah.
all.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. Um, just to stick with the powwow just a little bit longer, is there anything that I haven't asked about that you think is really important for us to know about the powwow?
I'm trying to think. No, well, I didn't talk about specials, but yeah, okay, I guess I'll talk about that real quick. So at the powwow, along with the competition dancing, we also have specials, and those anyone can really have a special. But within the past few years, we do recommend that they have a half payment down on their prize money. So like we're not advertising their special and then last minute they cancel, or it's just kind of a waste on both ends. But for this year, we were going to have, for example, my nephew Leo Brady, he was going to have a welcome into the circle special, and that's basically when our children are brought into the dance arena, so they have the right to be able to dance. They have the right to be able to wear plumes, feathers, or things like that. And not every tribe is required to do that, but for like my mom's side and my dad's side, that's what you're supposed to do basically. So that was one of the specials, and it was going to be a Tiny Tot through Golden Age men's fancy special. We had another special that was celebrating the life of a community member. Her name was Virginia Allrunner, and she passed away in 2018. So they were going to have a women's Golden Age traditional special. And then we also had youth enrichment specials. And in the powwow world, going from teens to adults is a really hard transition because, like me personally, when I was in teens, I used to take first all the time, and then going to adults, it's a whole another game. You're going against the big dogs. And some people, they do get discouraged by that and they quit dancing. And it's hard to see that. And especially when you're friends with them and it's just kind of like, oh, I miss seeing you dance and things like that. But we created that special to kind of give them encouragement to keep dancing. And it's not always about prize money. Like, you should dance to have fun. So that was a special. And then we also had our princess. So we have a Denver March Powwow princess, and usually it's not like some powwows will have like a contest or a pageant for the princess. But for Denver March, it's basically the committee members will kind of keep their eyes on certain girls throughout the years. So when they are like princess age, they can be like, oh well, she's got good grades in school. She's been dancing here since she was in Tiny Tots. Just things like that. Like you want a role model for these young girls to look up to. So that's basically what they're still the princess. Her name is Sim Renner, and she's from Washington. And she was the first of her tribe to be Miss Denver March, so it's kind of a big thing. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's kind of cool for her because she gets to be princess for 2 years. That's never happened. But,
So how old is it, like the top end of like the youth age bracket? Like how old is the princess normally?
they try to keep it like 16, 13 area. There were a few times they had princesses that were like um early 20s, and just, not everyone's perfect, but when you're a princess, you should uphold yourself to a certain standard. And like this one, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but she had a baby while she was a princess, and it was just kind of not gossip or bad or anything, but it's just kind of like most princesses don't do that. But since then, they try to keep it like high school age,
Yeah.
maybe late middle school, so kind of a younger age.
Yeah. Cool. Very cool. Um, yeah, I thank you so much for sharing all of this. Yeah, so anything else on the powwow? Because otherwise I'd love to hear you talk about your art and your shop and the artwork that you do.
I think that's kind of it for the powwow. I mean, we also had workshops, but that was kind of a new thing, and that was before the powwow, so like the week of the powwow.
Okay.
And yeah, I think that was pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So then I would love to hear you talk about your art and your craft and your business and all of that kind of stuff. I'd love to hear about that.
Okay. So I graduated from Haskell New Nations University in 2017. And from that, I had a lot of anxiety. I lived over there for 5 years, and I just basically picked up and moved back to Denver. So I was having a hard time like transitioning. And I had a lot of anxiety and things like that. And then it started out with one of my friends wanted like earrings or something, and just like reading a little bit. Oh no, I forgot. I had a beadwork order for a whole outfit, and I was finishing that up. And the more I worked on it, the more I felt like normal. I wasn't so jittery and had anxiety. So from that, I started beading more earrings, and then it was like, well, I don't want powwows just to be my life, because who knows, they might not be here one day, and here we are. Your job, but it was just kind of a weird time. I wanted to powwow, but not full time, but I also didn't want to be held down by a job where, I had to be there like every week or things like that. So I started my business just to like help my anxiety and just a side thing to keep me busy when I did powwow. So that's how it started. And then I started on Etsy and get busy with other things, so I didn't pay too much attention to it. But last year, that's when I really started making more than earrings. So I was doing earrings and necklaces, lanyards, wristlets, and then what else did I do? I think that was all I started towards the end of the year. And then it's called floral scarves, or they call them grandma scarves, and it's like a floral print.
Okay.
And they have gold on them. And I found out that they're actually not, they're from Russia and the Ukraine, like that area. So I thought that was interesting. But anyway, we use these scarves. They're just kind of like in our outfits, or some people will put them in their belts for their sweat, things like that. And then I saw some girls were making scrunchies out of them, and I was like, that's really cute. So I decided to try, or I learned how to sew first, and then I started making scrunchies with the floral scarves, and then I made some headbands, so like the tie kind. And then those kind of sold pretty well at Black Hills Powwow in Rapid City, South Dakota last year. And then after the powwow, I was invited to Pine Ridge High School to talk about my business and things like that for their cultural week. So that was pretty interesting. And then I feel like just from Black Hills and that, it started to pick up more on Facebook or through my friends and family as well, like sharing things. And then I started getting more orders. I also made my first medallion last year, and it was for the Boston Red Sox, the baseball. It was for my friend's boyfriend. So that's where I kind of started taking orders. And then since then, it's really grown. Since the pandemic hit, I was really scared because I couldn't work. Powwows weren't here anymore. So I was like, what am I gonna do? But I just really put all my effort into my business basically, and it's really grown. On Etsy, I am almost to 150 sales, and
Wow.
in the past month, I've sold to the United Kingdom, France, and I've had 2 orders to Canada. So it's really starting to grow. And that's the other thing about this pandemic is our native artists and fashion designers. I'm not sure what you would call them because they do make outfits and stuff. They're really growing, or like, more people are on the internet and they're starting to see their stuff more. So I think that's really cool. And I think that's kind of where my stuff is starting to gain more traction. And I also posted a few TikTok videos and that was pretty cool. I got like a few more followers on Etsy. So it's been interesting.
Very cool. So are you mentioned the scarf that was Russian?
Yeah.
But do you, when you're making these things, do you spend a lot of time doing research into where they come from, or kind of where the origins are? I mean, or is it just things that like you see and you like them and you start making them for your shop?
Um well, with the floral scarf last year, I really like I was getting interested and I kind of wanted to make them. And as far as I know, they're not sold in like a store. So it's more, I'm not sure if it's a trading post or people that sell supplies order them from somewhere and then they come in. So they're really hard to find to begin with. So that's why I researched those scarves, was just like see where they came from or like where do they order them. And then through that, I found a shop on Etsy. And then I kind of like went back and forth with the shop owner. And she was like, yeah, these are really popular over here. And it was like, oh, that's crazy. They always came from the US. Or, like Powwow people have always had them in their outfits. So I thought that was interesting. And
Yeah.
then recently, well, that was the other thing. Going to Powwows, that's where I got my supplies for my stuff. So like the jewels for my earrings, the rhinestones, different beads, like it's really been different and hard. But just within this pandemic, I've been doing more research online of like where these supplies come from so I can get some for my shop. But
Yeah.
even then it's kind of hard to find, so I'm not sure where these suppliers, and then that's the other thing, finding suppliers. Here in Denver we have a trading post called Bill Orr's, and they do have a lot of beads, but for the most part they don't have rhinestones or jewels. And gotta look on Facebook for that kind of stuff. So it's been different.
Have you considered in your planning for the virtual powwow to have like a virtual vendor?
Yeah, we've been looking at different things, and there was a powwow in Canada. They had a virtual powwow all together,
Okay.
and we checked out their virtual thing. And like again, we're just seeing what other people are doing, seeing what works, what doesn't. And we do want to give our vendors a platform just because we feel like they were, there's not much we can do for them, and it feels like this is what we can do at least for them.
Right.
And for the most part, we've told them if you have a Facebook or Etsy, let us know. We'll share on the Never March Facebook. And I think on our Facebook, we have at least 2,000 likes, or, there's
Oh
at least a
wow.
good crowd on
Yeah.
there. But we do want to include them somehow. So, yeah, we're still in a
Yeah.
lot of planning stages and throwing out
Yeah.
ideas. I'm trying to include everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Um, yeah. So I'm just trying to think. I mean, are there other things that you want to talk about? Other things you want to share with your story during this time, or?
Um, well, I guess I can. It's crazy because like since this pandemic started, I never realized how big powwows were a part of my life. And it's not just like the competition part of it, it's like just getting to know people, dancing, different opportunities. Again, like last year I was invited out to Indiana University, and I actually drove there, which is still crazy to me. It was like a 20-hour drive or something from here in Denver.
Right.
But they were inviting different dancers. It was such an opportunity because it was like they were picking good dancers from different places to come and dance at their powwow, and it was just kind of like an honor, like, oh my gosh, like, thank you for inviting me out here. And they very good hospitality. And then in 2018, I was able to go to the Honolulu Intertribal Powwow in Hawaii, and I made a lot of friends down there. And it's crazy how small Indian country is. We met quite a few of our friends' relatives down there, or even there used to be a guy that lived in Fort Collins, and he lives there with his family now. So it was cool to get to meet his family and see how he's doing. Yeah, it's just a small world. But with that, it was really cool because I guess Northern Buckskin, that's my style of dance, is the Northern Buckskin. And I guess not many girls with their buckskins will go down there and dance. So I went with my buckskin, and it was crazy. Like, I've never been surrounded by that many people, like wanting pictures or just wanting to ask questions. And then from that, they also used me for their logo the next year. So I don't have a picture of it, but it's my picture and then like a side profile, and then it's a Polynesian girl. So like we're looking at each other, and then it's like their powwow logo. So like there were just cool opportunities like that with powwows, and then just getting to know people. It was fun. Oh, and I was also part of 2 dance troupes. When I went to Haskell Nations University. They basically had a club, and it was for kids that powwow dance. And we would just do performances around Kansas City, Lawrence, and then in early February, the Seminoles have a I think it's called Brighton Festival. So it's a rodeo. They have vendors, food. It's just the whole thing down there, and they would invite us to come down and dance. So that was a really cool opportunity. And I'm also part of the Denver March Powwow dance troupe called the Living Hoop. And back in 2016, 17, we were invited to Manchester, United Kingdom, and it was a part of a Natives Go Global thing. And basically they were taking us dancers to show, the native style, the native culture. And then they were also taking vendors. Takabe was a part of it. They were going to try and make connections in these different countries for natives to maybe do some work with them, or even for Takabe, there was talk of maybe bringing them over for a week to sell their food, things like that. It was a pretty cool opportunity. So I really miss it.
Yeah. So I mean, how are you keeping in touch with all your powwow family right now then?
Basically, it's through social media. So on Facebook, Snapchat a lot, Twitter, Instagram. It's been really hard though, because it seems like, oh, sorry, that's Denver March phone. But it's just hard because as natives, when something bad happens, when something good happens, we want to be there.
Right.
We can't.
Yeah.
So it's a really difficult time, but we're trying to keep in touch with each other. And also with these virtual powwows, it's nice to see, like, oh, let me let that go. Somebody's calling. But for the most part, the virtual powwow, it's okay, finally. The virtual powwow is nice, or the virtual quarantines. There's also a Facebook page called Quarantine Specials, and that's for families who are going to have their specials at different powwows can have their special as well. And it's nice to follow those pages because a lot of my friends, they've been posting their videos of themselves dancing, and it's just so nice to see them dance. Or like my uncle, he just dressed up for no reason, and he had a little message, praying for all the relatives, and it was just good to hear him and then to see him dance. But it's really been crazy. But Zoom, that's also another big thing. I think we're gonna try and me and my friends are gonna try and have a Halloween Zoom party.
Nice.
But
yeah,
it's been crazy.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else you want to share in this today?
Trying to think. I think that's most of it. I think that. Oh, I also started making masks for my business, but that's about it.
I think, if I'm remembering correctly, you did donate, or you're going to be donating one to us. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It started in April. I started YouTubing on how to make masks, and it was more so for like me and my household. And then like just putting it on Snapchat, like, oh, working on masks or stuff like that. Other people were like, hey, can you make me some? And I think within that 1 month span, I made over 200 masks, and I donated some to the Lame Deer Reservation, Kiowas in Oklahoma. They don't really have a reservation, but donated to a friend down there, and he passed them out to Kiowa elders. I also sent some to Pine Ridge and Newtown, North Dakota, and also different family members and friends that have needed them. So that's why I made at least 300 masks and donated them, or if anyone needed them, just tell me and I sent them out. And now I'm making more, I guess, fashionable masks.
Yeah.
So out of that scarf material, I'm making masks out of those, and then just special material, some more fancy masks. Yeah. But I always tell my family and friends, like, if you need masks, just let me know and I'll send them. But I haven't had any requests lately, so.
Yeah, I also am a mask maker and have done a lot of that. In fact, I have a pile sitting next to me right now. But I've been doing kind of the same thing, like just producing them, and if friends or family need them, I just send them to them, and then donating. And it's like, got the fabric, there's not a lot else I can do right now to help people out. So yeah, but you said you are now selling the like fancier ones on your Etsy.
Yeah, I actually just added them, I think about a week ago. So, and there's a few different colors, but there's not a whole lot. But yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
Thank you.
Well, I have to say I've really enjoyed hearing you talk and just getting to learn more about the powwow and how that fits into life and everything. And yeah, so we can wrap things up if you feel good about everything. And
I think for the most part I shared everything. And then are you gonna like post about the powwow or the like the we haven't made public about the Coliseum part yet. Basically, that's what I'm saying. So
I can hold. It takes normally about 6 weeks from the time of the interview till it's the session, and then it becomes public. If you want me to hold that until I hear from you, I'm certainly happy to do that. So,
yeah, maybe.
Yeah, if you want me to just hold, I can do that, and then I can check back in with you and say December, and if it's good then I'll go ahead, and if it's not good then I'll check back with you in February. But I can just put it on my calendar to check in with you until it's a time where you're comfortable with it going out. Because honestly, like timing wise, if us releasing this, if us getting this accessioned and into the catalog, if we can do an announcement when we do that, and we can time it with your publicity for the virtual powwow so that we can help you do that in some way, that would be great. Like, I mean, it'd be very easy for us to say, hey, we have this new oral history in our collection with Larissa No Braid, and oh, by the way, they now have a virtual, like their virtual powwow set up, and you can go on, so if we can help cross promote that for you as well, I'm like very happy to do that.
Yeah, maybe let's try and do that. I know earlier we were talking about trying for like a virtual powwow in December-ish, but that's still up in the air, and I don't even know if that's going to go through. Right. So yeah, maybe we should just do that for December.
Yeah, so I will hold, and I'll just check back in with you periodically. And then if there's a point where it would be helpful for us to cross promote by using our marketing channels to announce that we have your oral history in conjunction with the announcement of the powwow, very happy to do that.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. That sounds good.
Yep, that sounds great. Cool. Okay.
But for the most part, I think everything else was okay. Well, I felt bad because I did another interview and I feel like I talked about the competition part of powwows too much. It kind of ruined it for that girl because she was like, oh, or I guess it wasn't what she thought it was. But me personally, yeah, it's cool to place here and there. It helps out with things, of course. But for me personally, when I dance, it's just a whole different feeling. It's like, sorry. It's like I'm not even here. And it's just a really good uplifting feeling. And then I also try to dance for our relatives who aren't, sorry. There's just so much to powwows. It's not just a business. And even though nowadays it kind of is, but there's a spiritual side to it. And I think that's what a lot of people miss. And I know myself, I miss it a lot. But I just miss dancing for myself and for our family and friends who need it and things like that. But it's just a really different time, difficult time. But I just wanted to add that there's a spiritual side to it still. And I actually personally, I did get in a few quarantine specials, and it wasn't just like, oh, I want to place. It was just like, I want to dance. I want a reason to feel good. And I danced in my backyard a few times, and it got me through those few months I was having a hard time. Personally, my parents live in South Dakota, and it's just being hard. I haven't seen them in about 8 months. So it's a really hard time. But even with them, they miss my whole family pretty much dances. My sister, my mom and dad. And I know my dad's having a really hard time as well, because for them, powwows were like an outlet. So much work, so much at home life. But at powwows, you know, relax, have fun, laugh, dance. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing, is just that feeling of you can relax, you're with friends and family. The drums, they're jamming. Oh, I miss it. But the other thing is, with this virtual, our young men, drum groups, they're able to do things with videos. So like there's 6 different videos and they're all singing together. And even though they've only done that a few times, it's just, for me personally, it just makes me feel so good just to hear them sing. You know, there's so much about powwows I miss, but I know we'll powwow again when it's safe for everybody.
Thank you.
I think that should do it. I didn't want it just to be like, but.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, thank you.
Ugh, I hate talking from the heart, because that's what
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. That's, I mean, that's the kind of thing that oral histories can do well. And in just having you share your story is giving us the opportunity to hear how you feel about something. And that's very meaningful. So I appreciate that a lot. So
You're welcome.
Okay. Again, I'll open it up one more time. Anything else you want to share? Are we good to go? How do you feel?
I think we're good to go. I just wanted to add that little part, just so like, I know there are some dancers, it's just, you know, this is my income, I need that money, things like that. But then there's others, it's more than that. So I just wanted to share kind of both sides, I guess.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Yeah. Okay. Well, I hope you have a really nice afternoon. I will, basically what I do with this is that I will go to get everything accessioned. What I'll do is I'll edit out kind of like this kind of part of the conversation out of it. And then we index it. So we basically create kind of like a table of contents of your oral history. And when I finish those, before anything gets released anywhere publicly, I will send those 2 things to you to just kind of look over and make sure you're comfortable with that. And then whenever we're ready to do the release, I'll just keep in touch with you until you're ready for that. And then we'll go ahead and do that.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, all right. Have a great afternoon, Larissa. It was so nice meeting you.
You too. I hope you have a good day.
Okay, bye.
Bye.